Well, hello. We are live.
We
Y'all,
are.
we're live. And not just me. Shannon is also live
I am in color.
in color. I'm so excited. Two different colors. We got the full color range in here.
Yeah.
And y'all are joining us from wherever you're watching from. First of all, I want to invite you in. Welcome to the live stream. You are now on with us, Tiffany Byrd Harrison and Shannon E. Johnson of the Professional Pen, joining me live. We cannot wait to get into this conversation, right, Shannon?
Because we got into it earlier and it's like, wait, it's not time. We're not we're not recording it. We're not live.
We literally got into it earlier. Y'all, I tried to get Shannon off the phone. It was an hour later. We did the black woman. It was literally
The
the
black
black
woman
woman vibe.
Zoom, the two
Like
of us, we
playing
were on
musical.
there forever, just talking.
Here we go. We were really talking forever. Sorry for y'all hearing my replay here on the YouTube, but we were getting into it. It was like the black woman goodbye. If I ever saw one, we could not end the conversation because we just had so much to say. And y'all are here. I know y'all have stuff to say. So before we get into it, welcome to YouTube. If you are joining us, make sure you let us know, where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments, please.
Where are you in the world?
Where are you in the world? Because Shannon is on the West Coast in LA, and Tiffany, myself, is in Atlanta, Georgia.
You
so
can tell
let us know.
by the colors of our backgrounds that it's still midday for me.
Yep. It is definitely evening.
Getting it, yeah, it's evening for you.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, welcome in. I'm going to see where people are watching from. We have a lot of people in here. First of all, 2000, we got Angela Davis here in Dayton, Ohio. Hello, Dayton. Oh, lady for the JBS in ATL. Welcome. Chrislyn from Marietta. Thank you for showing up. Oakland's in the house. Are these? I feel like some of these people too, Shannon, are going to be like shouting you out hardcore. So I'm very excited.
Come on, shout me out. My pen pals came tonight. Come hang out.
Literally, so many people. We got E. Ellington in Las Vegas. We got Alita from Ohio, TG from Northwest Minnesota. We're gonna just
see what Dan said.
What'd you say?
Dan Adams, LA.
Dan Adams.
Earthquake. The earthquake happened while we were on the call. Remember?
Dan, Shannon freaked me out because she was like, "Hey, there's an earthquake happening right now while we're talking," and I was like, "Do people know we're talking about Tyler Perry? Do they know?" Oh Lord, the earthquake came. Yes, we got tuning in from RVA. What's up, LJ? Welcome in. Thank you for being here. Englewood in the house. Oh, y'all are all over. We got DC in the house. Hey. DMV, stand up. This is very exciting. I'm so excited that y'all are here. We are excited to get into this because me and Shannon had a little off base, little touch base, off live talking about this. Guys, we had so much to say. We're hoping not to be long-winded. We're going to do our best. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not going to promise anything. I am long-winded, guys. Chatty Cathy.
I think before, though, if I can get some time in for you to talk a little bit, Shannon, I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself. Tell us about you. Tell us about your work, and tell us about the Professional Pen, because we want to know all about it.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know, because I know a lot of my pen pals are here. Hey, y'all, how y'all doing? Thank you for always supporting. So I'm Shannon E. Johnson. And I'm a former television executive in development and current programming at the Sci-Fi Channel. And then I quit that to join the circus. That's what I call it, because I went and I joined a dance company, and then I started doing Broadway national tours. And during that time is actually when I met Tiffany. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay. But while I was doing that, because people knew that I had come from television and I come from development, they were still contacting me like, hey, can you read my script? Right. And so I started doing that for free. I wasn't even charging because it just wasn't even on my mind like that. But then I was like, wait a minute, I'm a performing artist and my contracts are not in perpetuity. So I could be in a contract for a month and it's done. You know, you do a show for 3 months and it's done. And you're right back to out here trying to hustle. So I said, let me start charging people for this. And so eventually 8 years later, I came back to LA with the intention of being an executive again, but I had been gone for almost a decade. So nobody knew me. And this is a who you know kind of town. So it didn't matter how much expertise I had, how great at storytelling I am. None of that mattered. They were like, who are you? New phone, who is? So because I was getting clients that I wasn't even looking for, that I wasn't even asking for, I said, you know what? God is saying to you.
Okay, period.
It's saying to you that this is where you need to focus. And if you focus here, you'll get to the same places that you intend to be. So I started doing the professional pen full time in 2018 and have been doing it ever since. So I'll give my spiel now and then we'll do it again at the end. For those of you who have seen my reels, you probably know the script at this point. We develop screenwriters from I Did a Pitch. The part that I don't put in there, because it's more for my business to business people, I also work with scripted teams to help them to streamline their development process. So if you need help on your screenplay, or if you have if you are a scripted development team at a production company or studio or anything like that, and you need someone to come in and help you streamline what you have going on, www.theprofessionalpen.com.
Nice. I wanted Shannon to actually spiel all of that out for you guys because I believe that this conversation is one that's not just rooted in our opinion and our ideas about what's going on, but it's also rooted in great expertise in the industry. And Shannon was a perfect person for that. I reached out to her and said, I need someone to come in and talk to me about what is going on with the highbrow Negro, as we've been dubbed, the highbrow. And I don't know all of you, but I did want to share that Shannon is absolutely correct. We did meet in our musical theater days. That's been a long time gone for both of us now that we've no longer do musical theater. However, I also was a stage actor for over 10 plus years. I did a lot of music, singing, dancing, acting, comedy, etc. Improv was my bag and I loved it so much. And I transitioned out of that world to really firmly root myself in digital media. So a lot of my expertise is in video production, mostly for corporate, small businesses, entrepreneurs, etc. But social media is obviously the place where a lot of you guys have found me. And so YouTube, I'm now working on YouTube, creating video essays about film, critiquing media analysis, and mostly about pop culture. What does it look like to redeem media? So I call it redemption in media, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. And it's part of the reason why I feel so strongly about having Shannon from The Professional Pen talk to me about Tyler Perry, okay? That's what we're transitioning into. So if you guys are ready to get into it, we will not delay any longer. Shannon, I'm going to start off right away with reminding everyone what Tyler said. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Yes, please remind us.
Let's remind us what Tyler said. So the comments are juicy, friends. This was on Keke Palmer's podcast. I believe it's called Baby It's Keke or Baby It's Me Keke. I can't remember exactly the name of it. But the podcast quote, here is what Tyler said verbatim. He says, and this is a portion of the end of the interview. He says, no. You got to drown all of that out. Because if you let somebody talk you out of a piece that God has put you in, a place that God has put you in, you're going to find yourself in hell, he asserts. I know for a fact that what I'm doing is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing because for everyone who is a critic, I have thousands of what used to be emails from people saying, this changed my life. Oh my God, you know me. Oh my God, you saw me. How did you know that this is about my life and my family? And that is what is important to me. He continued, a large portion of my fans are disenfranchised who cannot get in the Volvo and go to therapy on the weekend. So you've got this highbrow Negro who is all up in the air with his nose up, looking at everything. And then you got people like where I come from and me, who are grinders, who really know what it's like, whose mothers were caregivers for white kids and were maids and housekeepers, beauticians. Don't discount those people and say their stories don't matter. Who are you to be able to say which Black story is important or should be told? Get out of here with that BS. End quote.
End quote.
Whew, that was my dramatic reading. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Shannon, I invite you to respond. I need to know, what was your first I pretty much know in my head, but I just want to take us back to that moment. When you first heard these comments, what was your first impression?
I want to be honest. I want to be real honest. I didn't hear the highbrow Negro comment first. That came later. What I heard first was, who are you to tell Black people what kind of content they can make? I'm probably paraphrasing. That was the first thing that I heard. And I said, I agree. Right? I totally agree. Once I got, the rest of the context, he's like, so get out of here with that bullshit, right? He said, excuse me. Yes, he said. Then I had to go back and listen to the longer clip so that I could understand how he got from I get to make what I want to make to such vitriol. And it kind of got lost in the sauce of feeling like people who critique his art must look down on the people he believes he's telling stories about.
Right.
And I think you can take it from two different positions, right? You could take it from he's trying to put, classism into it, education into it, any of those other socio-political things that can divide a community, right?
Yep.
And put that into it. Now, as I told you before, I don't take offense with being called highbrow. I think what that means for me when I hear it is that I have a particular sensibility for the content that I ingest, right?
Yes.
So for me, I think that the offense is on the group of people that he believes he's making content for, because he basically said you're so down and out that you don't know any better. And so I'm making content for you.
Well,
so instead of being offended about being highbrow, I'm kind of thinking about, did you just call everybody else lowbrow? Like, did you just call you know what I'm saying? It's like you're trying to defend yourself, but in defending yourself, you're saying that your audience can't accept anything else, wouldn't know how to accept anything else, isn't open enough to accept anything else. And in that, instead of just saying, this is the kind of content that I like because it's relatable, it's all about the word choice, right? He could have said that I know these people, they're like me, I relate to them, so I tell stories that relate to me. And he could have left it at that. But instead, he wanted to say anyone who critiques him, as if art isn't made to be critiqued, as if consumers aren't allowed to have an opinion about what they pay to consume, right? But he said, if you decide that you have an opinion that is against what he's doing, then that makes you highbrow, which then puts us in an kind of us versus them kind of dichotomy. Okay. And now you let the dogs out and they're going to come looking for us because now we're the bad people for thinking we're better than them, when Tyler Perry was the one that said y'all wasn't nothing. That we didn't say that.
Okay, so you have circled a place that I couldn't put words to. When we first talked about this, I was like, this us versus them, I would have never pulled out of this conversation. But it is something that has plagued specifically Black community, Black artisans, Black art for a very long time. Spike Lee has entered the chat, where there is this like chip on shoulder behavior, Shannon. And I think what I was really struck by, to your point about how we are looking high or looking low at different people in the community, whether they enjoy the content or they don't, I was really struck by the fact that this man has built his career around that chip on shoulder, has brought an audience along with him who have chips on their shoulder about him. And now we're all carrying chips and it's very heavy.
It's very heavy.
And no one will let it down. Like no one will let go of this. And I think one of the things we talked about that I was really struck by with this impression, and something that stood out to me with Keke's interview, I thought she did a fabulous job actually interviewing him, and she did some great questions. But what Tyler interpreted from her question about, well, how do you push back against the criticism, right? That was the question that was being asked. How do you drown out the noise? How do you keep yourself in a silo? And his response to that was, well, there are people who are benefiting from it, so no one should say anything to me.
Right. And that's no one is very critique.
Yeah, that's honestly the drug dealer's, perspective, right? If I'm giving the fiends what they want, no, I mean, for real, like that is the business model, is that, well, and you mentioned this earlier, you said something about advertising. You said,
absolutely,
Tyler's done a great job finding his market and his audience,
and
he's giving them exactly what they want. But what happens when you give them what they want, and now their appetite is it's childish?
Yeah, exactly. Their palate is not diverse.
Right. And they can't take meat. They couldn't take solid food if you gave it to them. They would choke. So I was really pushed back on that. I think you have highlighted that us versus them. I'm not going to let that go because it's really permeating my mind. And now it makes me look at our cinematography, or I should say the cinematic space that we're in, the genres that we have. Now it makes me look at all movies this way and go, well, is there even an appetite for highbrow Negro content, as he said, to actually sustain? What do you think about that? Do you think that we can push forward in this way?
Yeah, and I think That's exactly what American Fiction was about. And I think Tyler Perry wants to be, I can't remember the main character's name, but I think he wants to be,
Monk. You talking about
yeah,
Monk?
yeah. Like he wants to be the Issa character while he's saying that we're all Monk, right? Because Issa's, character basically says to Monk, we should be able to tell all stories, right? And
Right.
that's Monk's lesson. Monk has to learn that all stories can be told. Monk also has to learn to play the game, right? And in my opinion, Tyler plays the game, but then tries to act like he never played. He tries to act like he doesn't have any chess pieces on the board.
That.
You're playing the game. And I would respect it if he just said, because like we talked about with advertising, the point is I found my people, I know what they eat, and that's what I'm going to continue to feed them because it's making me successful. The other reason that I'm doing it is because in that success, I can open doors for other people. I can get other people jobs, blah, 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 blah. Why would I do anything outside of the formula if it's working for me? That's it. He doesn't then have to say, those of you who don't like my formula, look down on me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Those of you who don't like my formula, look down on my audience. That's not what's being said. And I've stated before, for me, it's not about the subject matter. It's not about the story he chooses to tell. It's about the execution. And therefore, I have the same criticism about how he answered these questions. It's not that underneath it, what I hear is underneath it. This is a man who's gotten teased and made fun of his whole life. And just because he has money doesn't change the man that he is. So instead of just being able to take the criticism, because if Barack Obama can be criticized, so can you. You know what I'm saying? So instead of just taking the criticism because it's par for the course, he decides to do what reality TV stars do on Twitter and on Instagram. And what Beyonce doesn't do, but her fans do anyway. Sick the bees on them. Right? So Tyler Perry said to himself, well, if I let my audience know that they're against us, then I don't have to do the bad. I don't have to be the bad guy because my audience is going to be in all the comments and under all the posts, and they're going to talk noise and they're going to do X, Y, and Z because those people who are against me are against you because they think they're better than you.
Yes.
Right.
And that is exactly it. And this sicking the dogs concept, Shannon, that creating a fence and creating that cycle and that loop where we're always at each other's throats, that to me speaks to, again, that gaslighting, as you didn't say it, I'm gonna say it for you. Gaslighting that he does to us as consumers. And I want to be very, very clear with what I'm saying. I am not at all, I don't hate Tyler Perry. Right. I don't have anything against, I personally don't know Tyler Perry. I have nothing against Tyler Perry personally. Based off of his art, we're just going to critique the work that he puts out. And I encourage you in the comments to do the same. We'll critique what he puts out because that's the fruit that we can examine. That's what we can see. With the fruit that we can examine, what I'm seeing is he's creating a cycle. As you said, he's narrowed himself into a place where his audience is there. He can feed them what he wants. There's no problems. He can continue to get rich off of that. I ain't got no problem with you profiting off of a model that works. Okay. That's good business. What I have a problem with, as you said, is the fact that we're not seeing any progression in the artistry. In the interview, he makes a great point to Keke. He says, people were judging me on standards of budgets that I didn't have. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
I didn't have the budgets that the Hollywood people had in the beginning. So I had to make do with what I did. It wasn't perfect. I put it out and I got critiqued for it. And Keke says, yeah, that's what you do, right? You create where you are. You don't try to wait for the budget. You create where you are and then you improve. The problem is we're missing the improvement.
Yeah, because in my opinion, the earlier stuff is better. And I, as the professional pen, I'm just talking about story. I'm not even talking about production value. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even talking about that. Like, we can talk about it and be funny and the wigs and the blah, 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 and whatever, right? We can even talk about some of the things that I paid attention to the most in his earlier films. And when I say earlier films, I'm talking about Diary of a Mad Black Woman, Medea's Family Reunion, Why Did I Get Married, The Family That Prays. I remember watching Why Did I Get Married and really enjoying the story and hating the editing and the directing, right? But again, you're new, you're learning. But that was also at a time where I would be watching the credits and say to myself, but he didn't have to edit it himself. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't have to do that. There's somebody he could have brought in to do it. Big budget or not, this is a collaborative industry, right? So I totally agree with him. You didn't have the big budgets, but because you're the only person who's writing these films, not the TV shows, the films from your mouth, that's not about budget. They're not paying for screenwriting classes for the rest of these people. They're giving them budgets to make a movie. They are expecting that the script has already been through development and did everything that it needed to do. So I'm always coming from a place of the story has regressed. The structure has regressed. And to me, it's because he knows that he could put anything on the screen, and his fan base is so loyal that they will watch it and they will love it. And again, I'm not mad at it, but just say that's what it is. Don't get upset that you're being critiqued when you know good and hell well you don't have an inciting incident, and you probably couldn't even tell me what it means, what it is.
Right. That and actually I would love to take a moment to do a little bit of education on this, because I do think this is helpful. One of the things we talked about in our previous conversation, Shannon, was the fact that there is structure and style. There are actually skill sets that are involved with making a movie. Now, Tubi might lead you to believe otherwise, my dear audience, but there is actually a method to the madness. When you see a movie fully produced and you're watching a story take place, whether it's good or bad can be subjective, sure. But in terms of actually setting up the story, creating character, developing the story, building a through line, having, as she said, an inciting incident, there's things that happen to make a climax. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's things that actually create the world.
And this is not just in screenwriting. 3-act structure is storytelling. The Three Little Pigs is 3-act structure. Little Red Riding Hood is 3-act structure. The stories that our ancestors have passed down to us are in 3-act structure. You just don't know that they are, right? And to that point, someone in the comments just said, well, why does he have to progress? He doesn't have to, but life is about progression. Anything that you're doing over and over and over again, you should be getting better at. That's called building a skill. So if you're going to call yourself a filmmaker, if you're going to call yourself a barber, if you're going to call yourself a beautician, a nail technician, a plumber, you're going to keep coming in here and still can't fix this pipe. It's been 20 years. You still don't know where the pieces go.
I got one more for you, Shannon. How about you go to church every Sunday? You at the altar every Sunday. You get in prayer for the same thing every Sunday. Life is about progression. I don't want us to move on from that, because that is so key. And part of the challenge with, and this is something I'm going to infuse my opinion here. Feel free to pick this up, Shannon. This is part of the reason my biggest challenge with this highbrow Negro comment and this idea that people who are asking for more from Tyler are somehow in the wrong. It's because it makes it seem as though we should just take the slops you give us. We don't ask for that from anyone else in our lives. We don't ask for that in relationships. We don't ask for that for our kids. Oh, the bare minimum is enough. We don't ask for that from our pets.
We kind of let that happen with our government, but that's on us.
You know what I'm saying?
But to your point, like that is the truth. And I think as Black people, because the only reason that this is ever newsworthy is because he's a Black man. And that is because Issa is correct, but it is also to our detriment sometimes. We root for everybody who is Black, therefore we believe we cannot critique people who are Black. This even happens in our workplaces, right? We might have a boss or a supervisor or someone who's not great at their job, but because they're Black, you're like, well, I ain't gonna say nothing. I ain't gonna snitch on them. So they're gonna make your job 10 times harder because they're not fit for that job. But because they're Black, because of our situation in this country. So I don't want to negate how we got here. I understand how we got here. You don't want to be the Black person who brings the other Black person down because it took us so long to get here. Everybody's hustling. And so we're taking in all of that into account anytime we do anything that has anything to do with Black people. That's why some people will be in my DMs and they'll say, well, I'm not going to put this on your post, but this is how I feel. Because they don't even want to say it out loud because they believe they don't have the right to critique someone, because they believe that they're going to get blackballed for being a consumer who didn't enjoy a product. If somebody comes to your door and sells you a vacuum and you go inside and the vacuum doesn't work, you're going to keep that to yourself? Or you're going to say something? And the same thing is true when it comes to entertainment. Even though we didn't know that it was going to go this social media route and that Twitter was going to exist and Instagram and TikTok, and there are always going to be trolls. So there are always going to be people out here who are intentionally just being haters or intentionally, being rude, et cetera, et cetera. But generally speaking, what makes social media great is you get to hear directly from your consumer. Now, the only thing here is, and I put this on us, is that we, as in you and I, are not his consumer. We are not his audience. But because we are Black people, right, we are just as invested in him. We want him to be better, even if that better doesn't necessarily mean being someone you're not, right? Like we don't want him to be someone he's not. That's not it. But to the point of responding to the person who said, well, why does he have to progress? Because that is life. You should be getting better. Your last film should not be worse than your first film.
That's right.
That says to me, either you don't care about the art, you know what I'm saying? Or this, so that kind of thing, I'm like, and you should be able to speak on it without people thinking that you're trying to tear someone down. Football players get feedback every second in a game.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that there's a real challenge like that's being highlighted here, which is this idea of criticism. Now, I'm going to say something very controversial. Y'all don't hate me in the comments, okay? But I'm going to say something controversial. Black people do not do well with criticism. I genuinely believe it's a cultural problem.
A cultural
problem. It is. It's a cultural issue. I am going to generalize. This is me generalizing. Forgive me in advance. The reason we don't do well with criticism, though, is for a good reason, okay? Because we have been picked and prodded and put up on places to be sold and bartered and traded like items. So I get that the objectification has caused us to buck at any time someone's trying to give us feedback, to account for us, to show us where there are flaws or wrongs. I get it. Because we've been told by the culture, as it were, that we were wrong since
our existence is wrong. Yeah.
In this nation. So I am not speaking to that. What I am speaking to is a holy or a just adjustment, a just feedback, a just criticism, one that is for your betterment and not for your harm. We don't do well with it, and we can't discern the difference. We can't discern the difference between being what's the word? Being judged incorrectly and inaccurately versus being critiqued in a way that could help us get better.
Being judged versus being critiqued. I think being judged take it personally, and he takes criticism personally. And again, I'm not saying that he's not getting most of the negative comments who are trolls who are attacking him personally. Maybe that's what he hears the most. Maybe that's what he sees the most. And again, after you watch the documentary, you understand when you grow up as a child who believes that all the negative is coming to you, it's hard not to feel that it's me against the world. It's hard not to feel that, right? So I understand it. But if you're going to be an artist, period, in any kind of art is made to be critiqued. Art is subjective. If you decide to become an athlete, how many people are sitting at home, never played a day of pro nothing, and they are talking about that the player should have done this and he ain't done this, and
if I was in there, I would have done this,
and they don't know. They ain't ever even been on a field that big, right? So you have to be able to distinguish between judgment, between critique, and between people just talking because people talk. You know what I'm saying? That everybody's going to have an opinion because that's just life. And social media has given them a platform for it. So that's why I always go back to, this man knows he doesn't know 3-act structure. He knows that. He knows that he doesn't know 5-act structure for his 1-hour dramas. He knows that he doesn't know 3-act structure for his half-hour, single camera shows. He knows that he doesn't know that, and he doesn't care. But he doesn't have to care because his audience doesn't care, which always makes me go back to, if he would just say, I'm doing this and the people like it and I'm making my money, and just leave it at that. If he would just say, I'm in it for the money, not for the art. This is my hustle. You go work at the post office. I make films that you don't think are that great, but I'm number one every time they come out. And just live in that, because to me, there's something to learn there too. There's something to learn there too.
But he
learn
did.
Your audience, build your market. But he did, and then he ended it on the other end. But it's y'all's fault because y'all don't like me, and y'all are saying, and it's like, no, you leave that part out and just live in, I don't care about the art. I'm here to make money. Just live in that.
Just living that. And actually, you said something really interesting earlier that I thought was such a good point. You said, I said I would consider him a villain if he said that, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't think anybody wants to be a straight up villain and say, yeah, I'm here for the money. So what? What about it? And you said, well, I wouldn't consider him a villain because it's true.
Because it's true. That's what everybody else in Hollywood is doing. They just have a better grasp on story structure. But that's what everybody is doing. That's what McDonald's is doing. That's why McDonald's is in your neighborhood and not theirs. Right. That's why, Chipotle is where that's why Nike is making sure that their shoes are always on an athlete's foot, because then they know that the Black people who can't afford their rent are going to go buy the shoes because it's on the athlete's foot. That's what everybody is doing. So you are still teaching young filmmakers, learn your market. If you want to be successful in this thing, it's not about story. I hate that. But as someone who has worked as a person who gets the green light, I obviously wasn't the top person who said green light or whatever, but as a person who develops stories and works with things that get made and don't get made, story is this much of it. It's all the rest of it. You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't see him as a villain. I would see him as trying to give me the game. But instead, he takes it so personally that he can't even realize, but dude, you have actually cracked the code. If you would just lean into that, you are the first Black person with an entire studio lot. You know how you got that? By leaning into your market and not giving a crap about 3-act structure. Say that.
Say that.
Now, and actually story, but
but I don't know, Shannon, I think that takes a great amount of self-awareness and a great amount of humility, which this is something I'm going to drill down on because I want your perspective on it. But I buck at the artist who is not humble. I struggle with creative people who are their ego drives their decisions. That is how I categorize Tyler Perry. That's my personal view. I struggle with that because what ego does, what pride does, is it blinds you to what's right in front of you. What you just said, he could package, redistribute, sell as a course, sell as a masterclass, create a stream assembly line of Tyler Perry creators and Tyler Perry Academy. It's probably coming. I'm probably speaking. It's probably coming. But he could do that. But what he can't reproduce, and this is part of the challenge I have with Tyler Perry and these comments, what he cannot reproduce, this is not sustainable for his so-called legacy, right? It's not a sustainable structure. What I mean by that is if you are creating, and he said this in his interview with Keke, that what he's done is he's taken some filmmakers or some storytellers over the last couple of years, this is his words, not mine, taken a couple of storymakers, and he has put them through his process, teaching them how to film a high volume of pages, teaching them how to write and direct and see where they're wasting time or wasting money on set, which to me and you already knows it's going to be underdeveloped, right? Underdevelopment is what I heard when he said that. Yeah. But he's taught them the Tyler Perry method, the process. And now he's saying, I'm gonna give over the reins because, you got to get to a point in your career where you can't hold on to the control of everything. And he says that almost as if he's got it, almost like, oh, he's so close. He's a wise stage. And then what I hear, and these comments, of course, come right after, which is my audience is not those that can get in their Volvo and go to therapy. They're not they are, the beauticians and the single mothers and the people that are like my mother who used to clean for white families. And that's who he's creating for. So my question to you in saying all that, because my perspective is that his ego drives so many decisions, it's hard to tell what is method and what is madness. But I want to ask you, where do you see this going if he really is reproducing these minions, as it were? Yeah. What do you see them producing coming out of the Tyler Perry method?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to try to remember that. The first thing I'm going to say is that it's just so offensive to hear him say that his audience can't jump in their Volvo and go to therapy when anybody who is on Facebook or TikTok sees an ad for therapy every 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds. Now, it would be different again, and it's always about the package. You would think that I'm in marketing, and I'm not, because I hate marketing. I hate being sales. But it's about the package, because what he could have said was, Black people have always been anti-therapy because we have been taught not to share our business. We have been taught that you keep it in the house. That's right. My films give people an opportunity to see inside the house.
Mm.
See that
Mm-mm.
their families are going through the same thing that other families are going through, and to give them a space to then have conversations surrounding these subject matters of being beaten and nobody doing anything about it, and molestation and all these other things that he writes about, traumas that he writes about. But instead he says, well, my people, they ain't got no resources nowhere, they can't do nothing, so I'm just gonna show them the things that they got going on. And it's like, but
I don't
yo,
know nothing about birth of no babies.
right, like, so you're really saying that your audience is at an intellectual level that they don't know how to seek resources that are right there for them? You don't have
And
to
you're
jump in
taking
the car,
advantage.
and you're
Yes.
taking advantage of it, is what you're saying. And that is offensive. So
Yes.
instead of trying to lift up your audience, and again, I'm not talking about subject matter. This man can write and film whatever he wants. As I said in my last video, he is not the first person to benefit on the trauma of women. Okay. We have been watching women get raped just so the hero can have a mission since the beginning of cinema.
Well,
okay. This is not a new concept. However, that doesn't mean that once you realize who your audience is, that you can't help to open their minds and elevate them. It doesn't, again, have to change the stories that you tell, but to look at them and say, they don't know nothing else but this, so I'm gonna give them this, is offensive. Instead of saying, it's my experience that we don't know anything but this, so let me show them another way. I'm showing them this so they can get to a place of wanting something different. So they can, again, not different from his stories, but different for themselves. Because if you're just showing me all the same stuff that I always do, which is go to God and blah, 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 then I too am not growing, right? Okay.
that's right.
So I also think it's driven by ego. The documentary told me that even more, that this is not about it.
I've never seen somebody commission their own documentary other than J-Lo. And we all know how that went.
I watched it, and my mother, who is very intelligent, has 3 degrees, loves Tyler Perry. And as we were sitting and watching it, I kept saying, this is not about us. None of what he does is about us. It's all about him. And she sees it totally differently because she is his audience. And she is not down and out and can't do and blah, 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 blah. Baby, she got a Benz. You know what I'm saying? But she loves his content. I don't subjectively, right? But she loves it. And so I say that to say that watching it, I was like, yeah, this is all about him having to prove himself to his father, show his mother that he can get her out of the situation, show everybody else who looked down on him, show the person who didn't let him rent out that first theater, show the group of people who didn't show up to the first show. Every single time he did like a little, the little side interviews, it was having to show people. So it's not about the art, and that's fine. I might have forgotten what your actual question was.
My question was about
where do we go from here? Like what legacy does he leave behind? Okay, so I think a few things. And this is why I wish he would be just more honest about it, right? So going back to the marketing thing, I think teaching other people how to cut down on time when producing, to your point, is underdeveloped, right? Number one, production doesn't have anything to do with the script. You can have a 120-page script that you shoot in 4 to 6 weeks. The development of the script happens before then, right? So bad script, good script is still going to take the same amount of time to shoot it. You know what I'm saying? So to teach people and say, well, you can just start pushing things out, that has nothing to do with the script. That's about production, right?
Yeah.
So just because you get people to, cut costs, cut corners, cut time, doesn't mean you're going to have good stories, right? The other part is it's very unfair to everybody else. It's unfair to your actors. It's unfair to your crew because you are pushing them through their process, right? Thirdly, what you're not teaching them is that the reason that worked for you is because you already had an audience. You already had loyal viewers who were willing to follow you. If you're not teaching them how to do that part, it doesn't matter how much they cut back on costs on production because they're not going to get the same views. You know what I'm saying? Queen Sugar, which is done by Oprah and Ava DuVernay, doesn't get the same views as a Tyler Perry show. You see what I'm saying? So you teaching them to cut costs doesn't make more Tyler Perrys. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't, you are, what's great about him is that you are unique. You're a great businessman to be able to walk into studios and say, because I have an audience, I'm going to do this my way. For him to have gone to TBS and said, you're going to give me a full order right here for the next X amount of years, and I'm going to own them. And TBS said, okay, that's brilliant. That's what you should be teaching people.
That's what you should be teaching people.
Because in shortening the production, and we talked about this a little earlier, what you're doing is you're not helping people who come through your camp develop their art and develop their craft so that they can go on and be great filmmakers.
I gotta jump in. I gotta jump in, Shannon. I gotta jump in because that is my problem. My problem with the Tyler Perry method and the madness. And as you said, if he was giving us game on the things that he has done incredibly well, we have gotten so bad at separating ourselves in consumer hat to the production hat. Like, you cannot like something and still say, but they did it expertly. I couldn't have pulled that off. Right. So like, I struggle with that. But what you just said, the fact that you can't produce a great Denzel Washington, as you said, and before it was like, you're not going to get these talents. Giancarlo Esposito, I know you said that about Spike Lee.
Yes, Giancarlo, honey, is everything. Started in a Spike Lee camp. And that's how you know that Spike Lee, whether he was intending to or not, brought leadership into his filmmaking. He taught actors how to work with directors, right? Whereas from what I hear from actors, Tyler doesn't direct at all. I've heard this at least for the television shows. I can't say it's true for the films. I have no idea. But for the television shows, it's one take hold. The actors rehearse on their own, and then they go on set and they just say their lines. There's no one there directing them, which means when you come off of this show and go to another show, you don't know how to work with a director. So how are you going to keep that job? Because you're thinking as an actor, you can just come on set and just say your lines how you want to say them. You're not even used to the creative process, the collaborative process of working with a director, because you've been working with a director who does not direct.
And I want to bring in the concept that we had earlier of how, and this is something that I've heard from coaches, basketball coaches, football coaches, they reproduce great players. That's why you can stick a player under a coach that has legacy, that has championships, that has rings, and they will come out with the same skill level or progressing in their skill level, I should say, of the coaching. And it's not because the coach can necessarily play basketball as well as them. No. Michael Jordan's coach couldn't play as well as he could. Kobe's coach couldn't. But they know how to reproduce great players. They know how to pull out great work. One of the things that me and you have talked about, Divorce in the Black is a great example of this. Mea Culpa was another example of this, that Tyler does a really good job and has these great connections with Black celebrities, Black actors that we all know and love, famous people. And he stunt casts them in his films with these sloppy scripts. But he puts these people with talent in there because they'll come up with the thing they need to come up with. They'll make choices.
From within, from somewhere. They're like,
they will. They will self-direct. They will cry on cue. They'll do the things that professionalism has taught them up until the point they came to a Tyler Perry film. And what we notice over and over again is we go, why did Oscar winning? Why did
Academy Award nominated
be in a Tyler Perry film? Is it the money? Is it what's going on? But what they often say, and I'll give Tyler this credit. I want to give him some credit on this conversation.
Absolutely,
I'll give him the credit that he does pay top dollar for the talent. Okay, put that out. He does pay top dollar. He's a philanthropist. He does pay. Here's the challenge. He doesn't pay SAG, right? He doesn't like to have union actors, so he usually gets them what's called a buy or whatever it is, where basically he's saying, I'm not paying into union dues. I'm not doing the union rules, but I'll pay you more than union would ever pay you if you got a project with them. So he kind of circumvents that. I have my own issues with that. We'll talk about it another time. But one of the challenges that I see is these top billed actors are like, but Tyler, he treated me with the respect I deserved. He paid me the money that I deserved. You know, I've been in this industry a long time, and that's great. It really is. But many of those actors cannot go elsewhere and then reproduce the same success, the same checks, the same results that they got on a Tyler Perry project because he has essentially marked them. Can you talk a little bit about that, Shannon?
Yeah, they're definitely handicapped from it without knowing, right? Because
Yeah.
anybody who is in this industry has a Black mama, auntie, cousin, granny who said, "Have you called Tyler Perry?" Right? Because they think that's how it works, that you just get in the industry and just call over and he'll say, "Yeah, come on, I'm gonna put you on."
Right.
So I can understand young actors who are saying, "I'm gonna go and I'm gonna audition. I'm going to go and I'm going to sign this contract that puts me into 5 years and says that it's an exclusive contract, so I can't work anywhere else during this time, because it's going to make me a working actor. I am going to get paid my worth for the next 5 years straight, if not longer." That's big, A, as an actor. B, for 2024, anybody to be getting paid that many checks in a row, you know what I'm saying, is huge. So I understand why they sign up for it. What they don't realize is that they are being marked by this, because people in Hollywood don't see, "Oh, you were on that Tyler Perry show for the last 5 years. We want you on this show." It doesn't work that way. Most of the time, they realize that you haven't been developing all that time. So that means even if you were in acting school before that, drama school, or whatever, you were really grinding before, and then you do this Tyler Perry show for 5 years, you haven't grown. Going back to progress, whoever that was that said, "Well, why does he have to progress?" Everyone has to progress.
Yes.
Everyone. So now these actors' skills are staying flat for 5 whole years, right?
Yeah.
And then you come out and you're a big star amongst Black people. You're a big star amongst people who watch those shows. But in Hollywood, you're just a drop in the bucket. And they realize that you haven't really learned industry rules, because Tyler sets are not industry sets. So they don't follow any union rules. So even if you're on a crew out there, you've been thinking, "Well, I've been crewing for Tyler Perry for the last 10 years. I should be able to go to Hollywood and crew." And you're going to go out there and not know any of the rules.
Yep.
You're going to go out there and set fire on the set, or get fired because you in here, you working electric, but you over here trying to pick up some of the gaffing tools, and it doesn't work that way, know? And so, we've heard from Lance Gross say that this has happened to him, that he has had a very hard time booking any shows or any films outside of the TP universe. And so I think, hearing it from the horse's mouth, we can kind of see that that it doesn't develop. That's just the word that I keep coming back to. It doesn't develop you. It doesn't get you prepared for your next thing. And so I think that goes back to Spike as a director. That goes back to, well, we didn't get to talk about this here, but we talked about it earlier. And I don't know if I'm frozen or if you're frozen. In the comments, who's frozen? Is it both of us? Is it one person? Let me know in the comments. I don't know if you guys can hear me. It says that I'm still here, so maybe Tiffany has to come back in. You guys let me know in the comments. Okay, Tiffany is frozen. Okay, cool. So that means you can hear me. So I'm going to keep going, and I know she'll jump back in. But we discussed earlier that when Ava DuVernay did When They See Us, the actors all made a point to say how much they grew in their craft after working with her. That's huge. So we don't understand the role of the director on a set. The role of the director on the set is the coach. And then whoever is in your number one spot on the call sheet as an actor is your captain. So you are learning on the set how to be a professional and how to grow in your craft from your leaders. You know what I'm saying? And so one of the things that I don't respect is that you're working with this young talent that you've gotten into these contracts, and then they don't grow. And then on the other end of their contract, they might not get any work. Now, obviously, this is not going to be everybody. You know what I mean? We're not going to put everybody in a box. Some of these people are greatly talented, and they just going to come in and hit the ground running and grind from the bottom up. But just to think that just because you starred in one, Tyler Perry show here for X amount of years, that stardom is going to then take you to something that is equivalent once you get into Hollywood. Maybe not. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't happen the same way for everybody. And so just as a leader, like we talked about with Spike Lee something about how Spike did his thing. And he too did his own thing. The Academy did not recognize him until a couple of years ago. And it was with them giving him an honorary Oscar. This man did Malcolm X and got no awards. Well, he didn't get, the Oscars and blah, 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 blah. Denzel, Malcolm X, a beautiful movie. Okay. And he got nothing. And Tyler Perry is out here trying to figure out why he's not getting accolades. Are you kidding me? You're kidding. And somebody else said that that a lot of the people who have come out of the 40 Acres camp have gone on to be great. Tisha Campbell has come out of there. You know what I mean? Like so many actors. And so anyway, I say that to say, as the director, you are not only affecting the crew, the script, because he's the director, the producer, and the writer, right? But it's also affecting the careers of the actors, which is why for the features, he does do the stunt casting, right? Because in that stunt casting, he knows that these actors are not coming here to learn from me, no way. They're going to come in here to get their dollar. That's why they signed up. They're signing up for their check because like everybody else, they're out here looking for their next gig. They might be famous to us, but if they haven't done a movie in 3 years, that means they haven't gotten paid in 3 years, unless they have some other kind of endorsements or some kind of other way of making money. So they sign up. I'm not mad. Sign up. Fine. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to the television shows, I think that's where the actors take the biggest risk on not developing over time. Welcome back, Tiffany.
Thank you. And thank you for carrying on. I jumped right back in. I lost the connection. Apparently the power surge. I was like, oh, okay, the devil is busy.
We had an earthquake and you had a power surge.
I don't know what is going on. Let me tell you something. But first of all, I caught the tail end of what you were just saying about stunt casting on the TV shows. And I mean, stunt casting on his films in general. And I think one thing I do want to say, Shannon, before we transition to any type of Q&A or anything, there's two more things that I want to touch on that I would love your perspective on. The first is, and this is one that I just pulled from the comments, just like reading what y'all are watching. So thank you guys for like engaging and interacting with us. We will definitely be taking questions in a little bit here. So if you have any that you want Shannon to respond to, me to respond to, both of us to, please let us know in the comments and I will pull those comments. The first thing I want to talk about is the religious angle. And I think this is very important because obviously Tyler Perry has made his audience, he's made his profit off the back of mostly Black women that are in the church, that grew up in the church, and that have a religious background or bent. I want to talk about this for a couple of reasons, because one of the things you said earlier struck me, which is this loyalty in the Black community, right? We're rooting for everybody Black. And I always tell my mom whenever she's like, we gonna go to a Black restaurant or a Black business, I always say, I support good Black business. I don't just support everybody Black. I support good Black. Okay.
Sometimes I go, even if it's bad. There's this one place in DC, their service was terrible every time. And we took ourselves down there every time.
I can't.
And it was so bad. I even spoke to the manager. I gave the manager a short workshop in customer service one day.
I cannot. Not you giving workshops that people didn't ask for.
Because he was a young man and he had no idea what he was doing. He wasn't even trying. And I said, look, let me give you some tips. And I ran down a whole bunch of tips. Now, whether he took them or not is neither here nor there. But
Shannon, that's what we call casting pros is fine. No, I'm just kidding. My mom and you would get along very well because she does the same thing. We'll go places and she'd be like, let me just give this young man a couple things. I'm like, Mom, you can't take it. That is what you said. But one thing I want to talk about is the religion aspect. And this is actually obviously very close to home for me. As a follower of Jesus, as a follower of Christ, I struggle with this perspective of building an audience off the backs of who you consider to be lowbrow, based off of your comments.
Based on his words, yeah.
Those are his words. This idea that they don't want for anything different. And also, and this is interesting, the irony of the conversation was interesting. In his interview with Keke, he says, we as Black people have a pathology. I can't believe I remember so many quotes from this interview. We as Black people have a pathology of essentially like pitifulness or brokenness, where we don't feel like we deserve anything. We don't feel like we are worthy. We don't feel like we belong. I want us to walk in rooms and believe that we are worthy and believe that we belong and believe that we deserve to have the things that other people have. And we deserve to have our kids go to good schools. And he kind of goes off in this litany.
And he believes his content does that?
So that's the irony. That is the crazy part of the interview is he says that in one breath. This is prior to the comments about highbrow and lowbrow. He says that in one breath that we should be worthy, and that's what I want us to do. And he believes that he is a representation of that shit. So his Tyler Perry Studios, his work is a representation of someone who believes they are worthy and owns that.
Mm-hmm.
He gives that empowerment speech.
Yeah.
And then in the exact 10 minutes or so later in the conversation, he says that my audience are people who only want to eat the slop of this. And they're not looking for any elevated content, as it were. And I take great offense to that because I feel that it says that not only are those people intellectually on a different level, but he's also saying that spiritual people, religious people, they're also dumb. And they also take slop. I take great offense to that. Because I feel like I am an intellectual, and I also feel as though I have a faith base. So can you speak to any of that? What's going on with talking down to religious people and acting as though they're also not in need of any progressive work?
Well, I think, he doesn't think that he's talking down. So that's number one, right?
Okay.
He thinks he's relating. And I think it has to go back to packaging. It's his word choice, right? It's not, those are my alarms that say I'm supposed to be posting to social media right now. It's his word choice. It's the way that he's delivering it. He doesn't believe that he's talking down. He believes that he's relating. Number two, I agree with him that he knows he's worthy. And that's why he has been successful. I teach that. Confidence is key, right? Confidence is going to get you 75% of the way there. And because he has that belief in himself, that's why he continues to grow, but he has not gotten rid of the chip on his shoulder in the time being, right?
Yep.
But I totally agree with that speech of, being worthy and what people think he doesn't deserve. And that's why he stands in it and he reaches his goals. I think on the religious part, and this is going to be controversial, but I don't have a problem saying controversial things. That's what churches are doing too.
My God. Say it again, shit.
Churches prey on Black single women and their hardships because that is their audience. And again, it's marketing. Man, I feel like I should be like a marketing strategist or something.
I think you
why
should.
Can't I figure this out for my own company? I don't know. But I see it because if my marketing was better, baby, but stock would be up. But I see it in everything else. Teachers are, one thing that I like about my church, I'm gonna shout out my church really quick, Cali Worship, is that it will spend some time at least acknowledging that men exist. And acknowledging that men need fellowship and acknowledging that men go through things, et cetera, because all the rest of the churches are talking to women and women only.
Woo, child.
They're doing wrong.
We can't.
They're doing right.
We can't.
To open their pockets because they think if we give money, God is going to give me X, Y, and Z. And then them women come back the very next week with that same problem. And the preachers preach the same thing all over again. And as Tyler Perry grew up in the church, then he saw that and he understood his market. You can't be mad when someone understands their audience. That's why I'm saying the thing that he doesn't really understand that he could package and sell is you understood your audience. We don't have to like it for it to not be true. It is true. The problem is he said it out loud, and those of us who are paying attention are like, oh, you said the quiet part out loud. Those people who are not paying attention are the amen corner going, because people, they don't care about us. And Tyler Perry cares about us.
Oh,
same women in the church.
Lord.
Ain't nobody, yes, pastor, it's you. Knowing good and well the pastor in there doing just as wrong as everybody else, but making sure that those single Black parents, women are in there every Sunday, opening up their pockets, just hoping that God is gonna, bless them. So Shannon, I understand.
Shannon, I can't have you on here. I can't have you on here doing what you're doing. Okay. I just can't. I had to leave. I had to take a moment back there just to get myself together. I don't like when you speak truth. Here's the thing, Shannon. Here's the thing. I feel like I'm on Club Shay Shay saying Shannon. I'm like, Shannon, listen here, Shannon. Here's what I gotta say. I don't want you to be right. I don't want you to be right. I want you to be wrong on this point, but I could not agree more. And I think to your point, I want to add context to this. The idea here, and I want to speak to the people in the audience that I already know are like ready to write comments about like, oh my God, y'all talking about the church. How dare you? Let me explain. Okay. Let me contextualize. What Shannon is speaking to is a conversation, as she said, that we do not say out loud. And it's a conversation that is overtaking many of our men and women, particularly the men, in the fact that they do not feel that the church is a place for them. Okay. And I want to be very, very clear here that biblically speaking, there is a place, neither Jew nor Gentile, neither Greek, like there is a place for all. What God does is he sees all people as valuable and a part of his family. He wants to adopt you in. Okay. If you accept him, that is what he wants. But that said, the church has not done a great job of taking biblical understanding and translating it to our actual liturgy, to our services.
Yeah. And the amount of men who I know who don't even bother to go to church, they literally say to me, why? Like, what's there for me? And it wasn't until I started paying attention, I'm like, oh, you're not the church's audience because you don't make them money. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because I'm not one of those people who believes churches should make money. I'm not one of those people who believes pastors shouldn't make money. If the drug dealer can make money, so can the pastor. He out here blessing people, right?
Right.
I also understand that churches are businesses. So while you're in here using the lights, using the toilet, eating the food after church, then you need to be giving some money, because how else do you think they keep the building open? Right. You know what I'm saying? So I understand it as a business. But with that being said, especially as someone who runs a business, once you become the person in the position to run the business, it almost is no longer about the thing that you got into it for. I got into this to help people write, but I have to keep the business open. Yeah. The pastors get into this to save lives, but they have to keep the business open. And once they realize that Black women keep my doors open, then that is who they are going to focus on. They're going to get out their insecurities and pull from them and try to get them to understand this is where you need to be, this is where you need to be, this is where you need to be, because they have to keep their building open and their lights on. And Tyler Perry does the same thing.
Right. And I think to your point, so this is not to villainize Tyler Perry, because I do think this is a larger conversation, but again, I want to contextualize it. What I think is so powerful about that is that the scripture actually warns us against these types of things. This is what happens when you capitalize on people. This is what happens when you put profit margins next to the needs and the insecurities and the challenges that people have. When Jesus walked the earth, he was serving people, right? But what we've created in the Western space and in America and in the movies and all the things is we've commodified everything. So now everything has a price tag, including your entrance into heaven. Of course it doesn't, right? But that's what has been put out. And to Shannon's point, I struggle with this, but Tyler has taken the model that he saw replicated for his mother and his grandmothers and his aunties. And he said, why don't I just put that into first church plays, Chitlin Circuit plays, and now movies that have no structure, no style. And he is collecting on that. Now, what I think is interesting, Shannon, that I do want to point out is that he's made a very hard pivot away from faith-based themes, as it were. I don't want to say there's no faith-based element, but faith-based themes. He'll have a church scene every now and again, but compared to Diary of a Mad Black Woman and Family Reunion, where church was very central to the characters, now we're seeing almost like a pushback to any type of biblical literacy, and it's more about secular themes, more sexual, more, and I get it, there's an enticing happening, almost So
I don't know. I would have never considered his stuff faith-based. I think that he just always puts a God component. I mean, or a church component, not a God component, right? Like even Diary of a Mad Black Woman was about a woman being abused. Medea's Family Reunion was about a woman being abused and another woman whose mother allowed her stepfather to sexually abuse her as a child. So there's always going to be a church scene, and there's always going to be during the climax, or at least back then when you could call out the climax, there's going to be Cicely Tyson saying God, right? Like that was going to happen. But to me, his themes are the same. I think Mea Culpa was probably the biggest leap for him. right? Was like,
It was a
we
big
usually,
move. Yeah, I
we
agree.
usually don't see him just doing straight up erotica. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
I don't
Right.
even know if I've ever seen a sex scene in a Tyler Perry movie before then. So that was different.
Right.
Just like
Right.
the one that he did, that was the period piece about the people falling in love, which was actually pretty decent. That was
Oh, yes.
different, right? Like
Yes.
that was
Yes.
different.
Yes.
But I think taking those two out of it, taking the family that prays out of it, all of the rest of the films, in my opinion, are always about the same themes. Which again, if you watch the documentary or know anything about his life, those are the themes of his life. And most
Yeah.
writers are writing what they know, right? So it's
Right.
always about a woman who has been done badly by a man and then needs to be saved by another man. That's what he's saying. That's what he's doing in every single movie. And again, I'm not mad at it. That's fine. For me, it's just the execution. And I think the
Yeah.
reason that right now, if I turn my TV on and one of those 4 movies that I keep mentioning is on, I'm going to watch it because they're done well. They're in the beginning of his career. So again, production value to the side, editing and directing to the side. But as far as the story goes, they are done well. While when he's going to come out with something new, I'm like, I don't even have to bother to see that because it just feels like he just went, all right, we ready. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see it as a going away from that. Now, with that being said, he is in a deal. Who knows if it's going to happen with Netflix and Devon Franklin to do faith-based stuff. So now I'm wondering, what is it going to look like? Because he already goes there with the church. You're going to get a choir moment. You're going to get the pastor moment. You're going to get somebody joining the church. And you're going to get God, right? You're going to get that in all of them. So I wonder what it's going to look like when it's actually a fully faith-based film. Like what
Yeah, that's a really, I think that's so astute. And to your point, like I'm not really sure why he's circling the faith-based thing again. I struggle. I struggle as someone who sometimes faith-based movies can be not great and they don't have the greatest production value, but typically they come from what I feel like is a pure place. And now knowing that Tyler Perry has put his playbook out in the open in this way, I struggle to wonder, and Devon Franklin too. I mean, listen, I'm not going to hold you. Like when he made The Wait with Megan, when they were married and they had been married for 2 minutes and he put that book out, I was like, is this not profiting off of this very, famous person? So I have questions about that.
Smartly, like that. Like I don't be getting mad at that. You know what I'm saying? It's like
it is smart marketing. No, you're not wrong. It is smart marketing. I mean, I do have an ethical problem with it.
Right.
But
yeah. Like now, if as his partner, I felt like I was being used, and I'm not saying she did or she didn't, then I'd be like, well, dang, right. But if I actually thought movie producer, actress, we did Black Love, right? We should write this book because now, again, as we talked about it on our call earlier, it's good press.
Yes. It's good press.
And if people see us as a power couple, then I'm going to get more movie opportunities and he's going to get more movie opportunities and our careers go up. So it's like, I get it. It's smart. Like, should you do it? Should you put your, relationship out there like that? I don't know. Nobody will ever know if I have a man. Like if I have kids, y'all will know when they're like graduating from college. Like, was she pregnant at some point?
It's true, but I think your point, and this is something I think about a lot with artists and creativity. I'm always interested in the moral bankruptcy that can happen when we do profit off of these things, like faith, like relationship, and so to your point, you're right. It's a good business move, but is it a good personal, spiritual, emotional move? Probably not.
I think it depends on the intention, which only God will know. Like so, right now at my church, I am on our in our film ministry. So you want to call it. And so we're doing a short film series because we want to make faith-based content that feels more commercial. Because right now, when I think of faith-based content, I think of 2 things. One, white Christian, heterosexual, like very, very, if it's not this, it ain't Christian.
Hallmark.
In Tyler Perry, where it's full on falling out of God, right? Like there's nothing in between. And so I'd love to figure out what that space is because there are Christians who feel like there's nothing they can watch on TV right now. There's nothing they can go see in the theater because everything has gone wild. When you start taking bras off on primetime TV on ABC,
well,
and so for people to decide, again, going to marketing, for people to decide Christians are my audience.
Yeah.
right? What do these people want to see? And then try to profit off of that. I don't necessarily see it as negative if your intention is to give that audience something good to watch and something they can
Sure.
watch with their entire
Absolutely.
family and, blah, 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 blah. Versus, oh, so the game right now is faith-based? Okay, let's jump in that game.
You know what I'm saying?
You
And
know?
put it, yes, literally, it's giving cross necklace. It's giving WWJD in the 90s. It's giving
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, those wristbands.
child. I can't tell you how many t-shirts I had at home. I can't tell you how many Christian bookstores I went into. And it was like risque when we started getting Christian hip hop. It was like, oh snap. We're like the work.
People were
Crazy.
mad at Salt from Salt and Pepper.
You know what I'm
about
saying?
The goodness
Like,
and the fullness of God. They were mad.
so, okay, the last big question I have for you before I go to the questions in the audience, and again, let us know if you have any questions in the comments. The last big question, Shannon, is are there enough Black people who want highbrow Negro content? They want elevated content. Are there enough of us that can warrant for something like this?
Yeah. I'm going to answer the question in a roundabout way because it's reminding me of something that I wanted to say earlier about goals. I think if people are being strategic into why they get into something, they will be successful. As an actor, if my goal is to be a working actor, then I can be on a Tyler Perry show. If my goal is to get an Emmy, if my goal is to be on ABC, if my goal is to blah, 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 I'm not saying you can't be on a Tyler Perry show, but then you have to think about the path, that's going to get you there. For Tyler Perry, his goal used to be to win the big awards. And then it wasn't until BET gave him like a humanitarian award or something a few years ago. And he did this big speech that went viral where he was basically saying, I don't need affirmation from any of those places anymore. I'm doing me. So cool. So if his success is my people are watching, I'm number one when my things come out, I make my money, then he's reaching his goals. Right. And so I would say is there a large enough audience to want elevated, nuanced, character-driven Black stories? It depends on what your goals are. If you're looking for the numbers that Tyler Perry brings in, then you're going to fail because, again, he's been building that audience for 25 something years. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
So for even if it's me who thinks I'm a great writer, if I come out tomorrow, I don't have his fan base. Maybe I'll have it 25 years from now, but I'm not going to have it today. So yes, Black people watch Succession. They watch The Bear. They watch Game of Thrones.
Yep.
They watch all of those shows, right? So it's not that we don't have it in us to want to watch those things, but the numbers show that if, like we talked about earlier, the numbers show that more people are watching Sisters than they're watching Queen Sugar.
Right.
And Queen Sugar is closer to this elevated, nuanced, character-driven content than Sisters is.
Yeah.
So because the numbers show that, you have to understand why a studio would believe that that's not what Black people want. Now, we're not a monolith. So of course we're watching Queen Sugar too, but the numbers are not the same. So I don't know if enough of us exist to reach the same goal, if that's the goal.
Yes.
If that's not the goal, then the question becomes, how do we talk the studio into thinking whatever goal we have set is high enough? Because if we're always going to be pit against his goal, we're never going to make it.
Right.
Because he's way far ahead of us.
No,
way far ahead of us. We're not going to make that. And it would be unfair for someone to say to me, well, are you going to bring in as big of an audience as Tyler Perry? No, I'm not. But if I can bring in a loyal audience, somebody mentioned 50 Cent. 50 Cent is not doing Tyler Perry numbers, but he's doing numbers.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And his content is about drug dealing. It's about violence. But even some of the shows, not all of them, some of them are very soapy, and I don't watch the soapy ones. But something like Raising Kanan is good.
Yeah.
It's good. I'm watching it right now, and I'm trying to wait because I'm late. I'm watching season 3 now. I only have one more episode. And I don't even want to watch it because I don't want it to be over. Right. But if this goes back to American Fiction, because I believe what the message was is that Black people want to be able to not be put into boxes.
Yes.
Right. If Black filmmakers are allowed to set their own goal and studios get on board for whatever goal that is, just like they would for anyone else who gets to fail and get more money next time for another movie on the same level, right? Who gets to, those people who did Game of Thrones had never done a TV show ever.
Yep. Neither. Not at all.
Right? And they gave them the opportunity. And then when the last season failed because they were no longer using the IP of the book and they had to make it up, and that's why it was so bad, they still, not necessarily HBO, but other places still brought them in to make more stuff. That's all we're asking for too. And if they would allow that, then we would get an opportunity to tell our, nuanced and elevated stories. But if we're just going number to number, no, I don't think that the numbers match up, that we show up in the same way as the Tyler Perry fan base does.
No, that's really well said. And the suggestion that I often have, and a lot of my audience will know on the channel, a big part of the goal, the reason I have the YouTube channel, the reason I make the content, the media analysis, the film critique, is to shift that appetite slowly but surely towards different types of content. Because all we know is the nostalgia that we had, the 90s and 2000s, of this kind of Black heyday, where we had our rom-coms and we had our films and we had these pieces that stay in the consciousness of our community. But the challenge is we haven't really seen that happen in the same way in this 2010s, 2020s like layout. And the part of the reason for that, like as you said, is the numbers are not shaking out the way they need to. We don't go and support movies that are different. I thought about how many times me and my husband went and saw Sorry to Bother You at an art house cinema theater out in Arlington, Virginia when it came out. And I never forget, there were only maybe 4 of us in the entire audience. Like there weren't that many people of color in the space, period, let alone Black people. So I see things like that. I see American Fiction. I see Bruiser. I see these movies that are a little different, and I don't see us in them. I see white people that are like, oh wow, wow, the Blacks have really come up in the artistry, like the gallery. That's great. And it makes me wonder. And I do think this is a small, I don't think this is like an all at once thing. I do think we have to turn the ship. It's a large ship. We got to turn at a very slow pace. So I understand, just as Tyler Perry built his audience over this 25 years, we're going to take a lot of time to correct or to broaden our scope. But I guess I'm curious for you, especially from a story perspective, because you see so many scripts and you are working with people. How do you shift that bit by bit, even from a personal level, like not even on a large scale, that's macro, on a micro level? How do we shift our appetite? How do we desire different stuff?
So 2 things. Sapphire in the comments said something about the marketing, right? And I agree, because either certain Black content will only be marketed towards Black people as if other people won't watch it, or certain kinds of content that happens to be Black is not marketed to Black people, right? So something like Sing Sing, which I just saw, right? The majority of the people in the theater were white people, and it was an industry event, right? There were a couple, like literally a couple, 4 or 5 Black people in there. Yeah. With that being said, I could probably call several of my personal friends in my phone right now and ask them if they know what that movie is, because it's not being marketed to them, because it is art house. You know what I mean? Sorry to Bother You is this elevated, nuanced thing that even in it, sure, it has structure, but it's, breaking some rules, and you have to be able to, open your mind and blah, 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 blah. And studios assume that's not what we want to see. So they don't even market it to us. They're not putting it on the banner at McDonald's. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So you're saying this is a visibility problem, like
on both ends, because Black people root for people who are Black. Half of the time, if you would just show it to us, we'd watch it. We might come out on the other end. And again, there are some people who are just not going to get into Sing Sing. It's not for everybody. We talk about this all the time. It's subjective. It's not for everybody. But the problem is most people don't even know it exists. Yeah. Right. And so, I think marketing really does make a difference. But again, from the studio's point of view, it's a catch-22 in a big cycle, because their numbers say it doesn't work. So then they don't try it. You know what I mean? The numbers say Black people are not going to watch it. So don't even try to market it to them. So it goes with that. As far as what I do on a day-to-day, a couple of things. One, I'm going to let you make what you want to make. My job is not to change your script. That's not my job. My job is not to make your script into something I want to watch. Because what I know is I may not be your audience.
Right.
So objectively, I'm going to talk to you about story and story only. I'm going to talk to you about what's working and what's not working. And when you go home, you can decide to take the note or not.
Yeah.
Because what I know about what I know as an industry professional is story is this much of it. So you have to be the one who cares about story. It has to be you. Because once you get past that part and you get into actually getting the thing made and blah, 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 story is like over there, right? So I try to get my clients to care about the craft of it. Whether they want to work with me from that moment on because they don't like the notes that I gave, or they find someone else who can help them to truly execute the thing they're trying to execute. And then I also have to understand that some people are not trying to execute much. They just want to say they made a movie.
Wow.
They just want the new hustle. Tubi is the new hustle. It's changing because Tubi got bought by Fox and they've decided, okay, we done with y'all. We want to go make
that
now, right?
Yeah.
But it's the new hustle. Black folks are always looking for the hustle. Oh, you mean all I got to do is be on TikTok and hear about a trend and then go grab some people, put them together and film it on my iPhone and put it on Tubi and people gonna watch it and give me money? Why wouldn't I do that instead of standing on the corner and trying to sell drugs? Why wouldn't I do that instead of going to college and going through the long game or going to law school and blah, 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 when I can be making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year by halfway making a movie? And if that's what you want to do, I'm not here to tell you not to do that. Same thing with Tyler Perry. If that's what you want to do and it's working out for you, do it. For me, I want people to care about the art just as much as Picasso would want somebody not to just get a big, get an easel and just throw paint up there and say, well, I mean, it's art. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think
want people to care on that level. So that's what I'm trying to do when I'm working with my clients.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I think for anybody that's watching or watches the replay and says, okay, maybe I love Tyler Perry, right? Like I'm one of those people that enjoys what I'm getting and I'm enjoying it. To Shannon's point, we're not trying to change your desire for the consumption of that content. Like that's not our job. That's not our point. I do think though, if we're looking for this, hey, how do we have a broadening? Just know if you are someone who is like, well, this is all I like and this is all I care about, that you are keeping us narrowed. And I'm going to put that responsibility on you. I'm going to say you're accountable for that because that's the norm. That is not breaking any rules. We're not breaking out of the box with that. That is the norm. So trust that that's going to continue to exist. You will continue to get this type of content that is just the basest of the base. So it's not going to go away is my point. Don't be fearful that it will go away. But if you open yourself and see something that has Black filmmakers, Black creatives, Black artisans involved, and you say, I wouldn't normally go for that, but let me just try it. Let me just dip my toe in. I think that's worthwhile. And a big part of my brand, my channel, Redemption in Media, the production company I've started, is about this reclaiming of media spaces so we have more avenues. I want us to, I think it's about choice, right? Every other marginalized group talks about choice. It's about choice, about the choice to do it. I want us to have a choice that if we could see this Black Panther movie over here, or this Tyler Perry movie over here, or this sci-fi, or this horror, or this, like, I want us to have an opportunity to have psychological thriller. I want us to have these pieces that don't normally exist to us and are not keeping us in this closed place, because as we always say, representation matters, but only if it's quality. Only if it's quality. It doesn't matter if it's the same old.
Yeah, because the other thing that we can't speak in extremes because Hollywood is a place where no one gets to the same destination on the same path, right? So the moment you say you can't do, somebody's going to do it and be successful that way, right?
This is true.
But what I want the greater audience to understand is there will only be a few Tyler Perrys. I don't want to say there will only be one because I think that's limiting.
Sure.
But most people will not get as far as he did making the quality of films that he made.
I believe that.
Right.
I believe
And
that.
that again goes back to the only reason he got there is because he already built an audience. That is the reason that studios are doing IP now. Well, not now as if they never did it before, but more than ever, right? Because that book comes with an audience. Working with that influencer who's never acted a day in their lives, but they got 1 million people following them.
Oh, child.
With an audience. So the same thing is true for Tyler Perry. Like, I don't want, so when I'm working with my clients and they do want to make something that's not very good, it's like, okay, cool. Like, you can make it, that's fine. But it goes back to, but what are your goals? Right? Especially once Tubi's not in the game anymore. I'm sure something else will come along in however many years to give people an opportunity to just show their stuff and make their money, whatever. But I just want people to consider there will not be a whole lot of Tyler Perry's. Like, if you look at cinema over time, especially if you happen to be a Black person, and look at the people who are making films that have a long career, that have created longevity, that have been award winning, etc. Most of them, I'm going to say 95% of them, are not making the quality of films that Tyler Perry is making. He is an anomaly. He is the exception.
Yeah.
The rule. And it doesn't mean that, again, everybody has to be Christopher Nolan. That was somebody you brought up before.
Oh, yeah.
That. Right. Rom-coms exist. Comedies exist. Just regular stuff. That stuff exists. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean that you have to be writing I'm trying to think the name of one of the Oscar-winning films from this past year, but they're all leaving me now. But so it doesn't mean that you have to be Steven Spielberg.
Right.
You don't have to be doing The Color Purple.
You know
what I'm saying? You could be making just good old Christmas movies if that's what you want to do. But if you look at the quality of those productions and how often people are putting those out, you'll realize that he is the exception, not the rule. So you just have to really ask yourself what you want out of this career, or if it's a career at all. It could just be a hobby. It could just be that you just want to prove to yourself that you can make a movie. Anytime I'm working with somebody, it's the first question I ask, what's the goal? Because if the goal is, I just want to make a movie and show it to my mom and them, great. Right? Because you can put up a screen in your backyard, invite all your family and friends over, and they can celebrate your accomplishment.
Yeah.
The goal is, well, I just want to get into a film festival and get some laurels. Okay, great. Then we'll find the film festival that will accept your thing and that will send you laurels so that you can feel good about it. If your thing is, I just want to have my film in a movie theater. Did you know that you can buy out a movie theater? Great. What we'll do is we'll get this movie made. We'll see how much it costs for you to run your movie in this movie theater for X amount of weeks. You pay for it and you've reached your goal.
Yeah.
But if your goal is for this to be a career, if your goal is for you to be acknowledged by your peers, etc., then you have to focus on the art in a different, in a different
way. Yeah. And you're speaking directly to me as a beginner filmmaker, like new to film, old to production, old to theater and art, but new to film. All of this stuff is like, I'm absorbing and understanding so much around not only the industry, but again, that sustainability aspect, because I feel like a lot of people come in, I'm sure they come into your office, a lot of people talk to me and they go, and with YouTube, for example, and they'll say, oh, how do I get started on YouTube? And I'm thinking, okay, how seriously are you taking it? Right? Because if we start this first conversation and I tell you, okay, you said that you want to have a YouTube channel, but you don't even like to talk to people, or you struggle to put sentences together, we're going to have to start with some baby steps, right? Yeah. And I think you're encouraging artists and creatives, and I hope you guys hear us very clearly, that this is about progression. I think the whole conversation has been about progressing in your work. And so I want to transition really quick to the questions. I know we've been going, y'all been riding with us for some time, an hour and a half. Thank you so much for being here. I just want to get some questions in, Shannon, to make sure that we at least respond to these.
Yeah, acknowledge them.
Acknowledge them, yes. And we see y'all in there. It's a lot of people, and we love y'all for it.
And y'all are your own conversation. I love it.
I know, right? So this is, I believe Simba the Hollywood Reject is also a client of yours.
Yes.
He says, can we get back to how going to therapy is highbrow? How ignorant and dangerous is that for someone in his position to say? And obviously that's rhetorical, but yeah, can we get back to that, Shannon? You touched on this, but I would love for you to elaborate. Is therapy highbrow, in fact?
No, actually. And I don't think it ever has been. Like ever, especially in the Black community. because it was so frowned upon. It was actually the opposite. Well, what are you, crazy? Why
Right.
why are you going to therapy?
Why are you going to a shrink? Right.
Why are you going to the shrink? All you need is God.
Yeah.
You know?
You just go to God. Exactly. You just go to
That's
prayer.
it. So the fact that he has put it in there, especially when some of his movies are about therapists.
That part.
You know,
Wasn't Mia Culpa with the marriage counselor and they were
it was the marriage, the one with Journey Smollett was a
Oh,
therapist.
yes.
The one
Yes.
with Taraji, she was with a therapist half the time, half the movie.
Has he been to therapy? Because I feel like all those scenes ring very untrue.
They do ring very untrue.
You know what I'm saying? I'm in therapy. I know what therapy is like.
Right.
Like, they don't seem real. They don't seem founded in reality.
Yeah. So I think, so to Simba's point, I think it is very, very dangerous to say to a group of people who are already anti looking inside themselves, you know what I mean? Already anti feeling and being vulnerable and being open, especially when it comes to our Black men who have been told that they are not allowed to feel anything.
Yes, ma'am.
Very dangerous to say to them that it's only for highbrow people to do some reflection on their lives, their traumas, and try to work through them. I think it's very dangerous.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also, I think your point, if he's insinuating that his movies can be a type of therapy for people, I just want to say on the record, they are not a replacement for therapy. Going to movies is not a replacement of therapy. No. Watching this conversation with me and Shannon, not a replacement for therapy.
It should be the thing that triggers your, right? That might be the thing that took you on that path. Maybe because you saw the movie. Now, I don't know, because I don't think that's what his movies do. But maybe because you saw, dang, what's the one with Taraji? It was really bad.
Marriage, Acrimony.
Acrimony. Maybe because you saw Acrimony, you said to yourself, I need to go to a therapist.
Right.
I doubt that happened. But that should be, how your art is impacting, people.
No, that's so good. That's so good. Yes, therapy. I'm telling you, I am an advocate. Jesus plus therapy, if that's what you do. Therapy is very, very helpful. It helps you see things that you would not see in yourself. And it's if you find a good one, it's really, really quality and can improve your life exponentially. I like this one. It says, as someone who's been a member, this isn't really a question, just a statement. As someone who's been a member of a white church and of a Black church, please know that everyone has their own mess. Many of us idolize our Blackness and put it above being a follower of Christ. I wanted to highlight this, Erica, because 100% agree. And I know that identity can be it's a struggle especially for Black people in America. It's a struggle for us to know that we are worthy, going back to that point about worthiness and being allowed to exist. But the reason I wanted to highlight this is because I do think that idolatry is a problem, maybe not in the same way that you said it, but just across the board.
Yeah.
I think we put our heroes on pedestals, and I do think Tyler Perry sits into that same place of putting him on a pedestal because of all the great he's done, the philanthropy, the work, the things he's been able to accomplish. But they say never meet your heroes for a reason, and you cannot make human beings idols. And so I am very much of just like you can't put Blackness on a pedestal, you cannot put Black celebrities, authorities,
leaders. You can't put your pastor on a pedestal. That's why people got church hurt. Your feelings are hurt because you thought he wasn't a human being.
That they are not God.
They are not God, and they are all sinners like everybody else. That's right. Why most of the churches, for what I know, because I don't know my pastor's business like that, but for what I know, all the churches that I've gone to, the reason I've gone there is because my pastors have made it clear that they are human. They will tell us about their flaws. They will tell us the things that they have done wrong in their marriages. They will tell us that they curse. You know what I mean? Like, they will tell us. That way you don't get confused when they make a mistake, or not make a mistake, do something intentional that is wrong.
Yep.
Your feelings are not all hurt. You turning away from God because you put this pastor up higher than everybody else.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Exactly. So idolatry is a problem across the board. That's what I have to say to that. Does Tyler Perry believe in residuals for his workers? He gets residuals for sure. I don't know the business acumen of this. Do you know, Shannon, if his people get residuals or not?
Well, it depends on their contract. So he's the only writer, so there are no as far as features go.
Sure.
He's the only writer, so there are no residuals to go to writers. And since he's the producer, it depends on how he put it in the contract, right? Because he's the writer, the producer, and the director, which means he would get paid 3 times.
Right.
Yeah, because those are each different line items.
Exactly.
Now he might decide, because he's those three people, to not do that, because that's more money that he got to figure out that just comes back to him. But
Right.
as a producer, he also gets paid last because he has to pay everybody else first.
Yeah.
So there's no residuals for writers in that. He's usually working with studios, etc. They're gonna get their money the way they get their money. And for the actors, it just depends on, well, if we're talking about residuals, then we're talking about television.
Right. We're talking specifically about television.
We're talking about television.
Mm-hmm.
And it just depends. He's not union, so he doesn't have to do it the way that the WGA says it has to be done. So
right.
I don't know. And I don't even know, because I don't watch the shows and I haven't watched the credits. I know of a person with the title writer in his camp. But I don't know if it's, I'm on the writing staff, I write an episode, I get paid for my episode, I get residuals on my episode. I don't know, because he's not working it like the studio system works it. So I haven't the slightest idea.
Yes. Yep. That's great. Thank you for providing that. I couldn't answer that at all, because I would have been like, I have no idea if any of them people are getting paid. Why do you think Tyler isn't invested in stories that spotlight the community and do an Erin Brockovich Pursuit of Happiness Silver Linings playbook? Is it because he can't? Now that's interesting, because those are three different types of movies, her real review. So I think I'm curious if you're asking like why he doesn't do these types of large, super blockbustery type movies, or if you're asking just the style.
I think it's more of like these human interest stories, right? Like Erin Brockovich being a real life woman, Pursuit of Happiness, that was a real dude.
Real life story.
Silver Linings Playbook is the only thing that I didn't see. But if I'm looking at the other two, then I'm going, these are about real people and their biographies in some kind of way.
Right.
And I wouldn't say it's because he can't. Because again, if he actually wrote that period piece that came out a few years ago, and if he actually wrote those first 4 films, he could write anything. If that's what he wanted to do. I just don't think those are the stories he wants to tell. He's writing what he knows over and over and over again. He's writing what he saw growing up. He's writing what he relates to, and he's writing again what he knows his audience relates to. So I think for him, he's probably thinking that they would rather see what he's currently writing than to see a story like Erin Brockovich, which is more of an investigative, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Somebody said, I just thought this was funny. Tyler Perry's money laundering at this point. I don't think it's actually money laundering, but I think that's kind of a funny comment. Just the idea of, because he got to put the money somewhere. And if he's getting all the line items and he's doing all the things, he got to funnel it somewhere.
Yeah. And in the beginning, that was fine when he didn't have any money, because that meant he didn't have to pay extra people. If it was his name everywhere, there was nobody else to have to pay. That made sense when it was for real, grassroots. Let me just get out here and do it. At this point, it's like, sir, your name don't need to show up but one time in this credits, and that should be as producer.
Yeah, and I think to that point, this question from Tristan says he has this idea that his name needs to be seen on every part of the project. Can he just produce or just write or direct? Can he pick just one?
On the same page, Tristan. Pick one. And if I have to say, pick produce.
Yeah, I would say produce.
I think he does that. Again, I don't have to like how he does it. I don't have to like that he tries to stuff it all into one day. I don't have to like that. But if I had to give him props in one of those areas, it would be producing, because he can get them things done on time and under budget.
And way under budget. And I actually think that what's interesting about this, he said this in the Keke Palmer podcast, he mentioned that he is now passing the torch, so to speak, to these other storytellers. I think that proves to be seen. I would love to see if that's true. But yeah, he also mentioned that he put his name on everything because he was building a brand. Well, Tyler, your brand is built.
It's built. Now, what I'm hoping, and I'm gonna say this out loud, what I'm hoping, because I've heard that he is, open to submissions now, and he's going to be making other people's stuff.
Okay.
I'm hoping he's not giving notes on the scripts.
Lord help us. Maybe he'll get you in there. The professional pen.
I doubt it. I'm hoping that he hires some development executives.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that he, like in real life at this point, he doesn't even have to produce. He can just be the name on the building.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, he doesn't even have to you don't have to do nothing. Just give the money and let the people do their thing. You know what I'm saying?
That's real. That's so real. I have not seen this yet, but Shannon, have you watched Supercell series on Netflix? I heard great things.
Absolutely. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here, but I did a post on my Instagram page at the professional pin. That's my Instagram at the professional pin. And you'll see the cover is the Supercell poster. It was brilliant. If you haven't seen it, go watch it as soon as you get off of here. That's how fast you need to go watch it.
That's how fast you need to go watch it. See, and I don't even have Netflix, but definitely go follow Shannon on the professional pen. I see your highlights on that. And I refused to watch it because I was like, I need to go actually see things. I need to go check it out. But yes, definitely go follow Shannon and make sure you guys get on that. Only a couple more here. Thank y'all for hanging with us. This is an interesting question from, I hope I'm saying your name right, Demario DS. Is it worth being part of the union WGA? Also, what are some pros and cons to joining?
Yeah. You would know this from AFTRA.
Not AFTRA. You talk about the actual equity for theater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of the name of it. What is it? AEA?
AEA. Yeah.
AEA. You understand it. Because in the AEA, if you join, then you can only do equity shows.
Correct.
But as a Black person, how many opportunities do you have to do equity shows?
That part.
So is it good for you to be equity if after you become equity, you can't work?
That's why I'm EMC to this day.
Exactly. So
no.
All unions are that way, right? So the WGA has a lot of benefits to you because that's where you get your medical insurance.
Absolutely.
That's where your advocates are. They create minimums that people have to pay you. So there's no more negotiating on, hey man, you look, oh, this all I got. You're going to come do this gig. Right. It's like, bruh, my minimum is 20,000.
Right.
And I can't go against that because then I'd be going against the union. So it is what it is. But it also means that you can only work with union shows.
Yeah.
Or union productions. So that means if you don't, then you could lose your membership in the union. So the negative part about it is if you're not in a place right now where you can be getting union gig after union gig, now you're in the union paying them dues but not working. And so for me, I had an opportunity to join the union in 2022, and I chose not to because most of my work comes from non-union gigs. That was the only union gig that I had going on. It was a nice one. So basically where I am now is if I do one more union gig, I have to join.
Yeah, you're much.
I'm looking for you too. It's not a should I? If you
no, they will come for them too.
They will come for you because you have done X amount of union shows, you have X amount of points. However,
you have to. Yeah, I remember not doing an equity show, an equity tour right before I stopped doing musical theater entirely because that was my fear. Was literally like I was like, but I can book non-union shows 3 back to back. I could probably only get one union. And I was like, I just couldn't. I didn't feel like doing it at the time.
Now, where I am in my life now, I'd love to be union, but that's because things have changed for me in the industry, and also because you giving me all of this free healthcare. You know, I can get a 401k here. I can start getting prepared for retirement. And when you are a writer or any kind of artist where you're working contract gig to gig, you don't have that happening for you over here. Like, it's not like working your 9 to 5, you know what I'm saying? Your retirement and your social security and everything is growing over here. So the union gives you that, right? So it's very beneficial, but you do have to consider, are you in a position where you can be getting, more and more union jobs so that you can actually keep getting paid? And if not, then if you have a choice, don't join. If you don't have a choice, then you have to join. And now you just have to figure out how to get more union gigs.
Right. Okay, I'm going to take one more question, friends. Thank you guys so much for your continued help. And I think this is a really interesting question. ODB 718, who do you think Tyler could hire to help progress his businesses in the right direction besides you two? I don't think Tyler Perry's hiring me ever, guys.
Right. I don't think something tells me, and I don't know if this is true, but something tells me he requires yes men, and I ain't never been a yes man.
That part.
Like, nah.
Yeah, if you don't take critique well, like that's the thing. I feel like it's weird that he was in the theater world because in theater, you learn very quickly for people to tell you who you are and what you about.
But he was making his own theater. He was him. It's always been him. It's never been him doing it with somebody else, for somebody else.
He's not a good collaborator, guys. This is my whole thing. That's why I think he's ego driven, because he's not a good collaborator. And as Shannon already said, film, theater, all of these artistic endeavors are collaborative arts. You have to be able to work with other people. And if you don't, you go do your own thing, but you do it in a way that typically, again, not reproducible, and not sustainable. That's my opinion.
Really, he could. I don't know people by name, but as crazy as the studio system is, as broken as it does have some foundational things in place, and he just needs checks and balances. Like the reason that development executives and in television current executives exist is for that check, is so that the showrunners and the staff or the feature writer, whoever they are, aren't in this silo in front of their computers by themselves trying to solve every problem on their own. We grow up knowing that two heads are better than one, and then we become adults and we don't want no more heads. And I don't understand that, right? So development executives are on your team, looking at it not only from the story point of view, but also from the business point of view. And that's that check and balance. Now, I have met people, this is not for me to name names or throw people out there, but I've met people who have worked in his camp in that way. The good thing and the bad thing about him and other Black people, because we're always rooting for everybody Black. There's nothing wrong with this, but you have to understand, if you decide to do it, there are more steps on the other side. What we do is we hire people from the bottom and put them in positions on the top without any training. We hire our cousins. And again, nepotism is fine because everybody else participates in nepotism as well. Right?
That's right.
So it's okay that you hired your cousin, but then to put your cousin in a position to fail because you didn't train them is the problem. So he has had people working for his production company with big, huge titles that are supposed to be those checks and balances. But if they've only worked with him, or if they've only been on sets a few times before they ever worked with him, so they're not bringing in any other knowledge or any other expertise, then they can't do their job well. If they don't know story and you don't know story, you don't have a check or a balance.
It's the blind leading the blind.
It's the blind leading the blind. So it's really just, and again, not to say that these people have to come from the studio system, but just to say that because the studio system has been around longer, there are people like myself, plenty of Black folks who've been in this system, who are out of the system, plenty of independent producers who have been doing this thing long enough, blah, 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 that they at least have some information to offer those checks and balances. So it really just becomes about like hiring the right people, right? And for me, since I'm a story person, then I'm going to say it's the executives. You need the executives. For crew people, they're going to say, well, you need the right line producer, the right production manager, the right first AD, the right, you know what I mean? It just depends on what problem you're trying to solve. But on the story side, definitely getting some executives who understand story and can help you through your drafts is the way I would go.
Excellent thoughts, insights, Shannon. I knew it would be, because I wanted you here because I just knew you would bring such a wealth of information and insight. So thank you for that. Can you please let everybody know how to follow you? What are you working on? Where to find you? I would love all of the links, and I'll pop them up as you talk.
Yes. Okay. Before we go there, I feel like TG is having a conniption.
No,
he said he had a question. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl. I
didn't see the question for TG, but
wait,
what up, TG?
TG, what was your question? You said you had a question for me, but I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. See, at 6:35, he said, I have a question, but I think the question was before you said you had a question.
Oh, sorry, friend. I did not find it.
Shannon, here it is. Okay. Yeah. What are the positives and negatives of working in the industry that you worked in? I just stubbed to Shannon's channel already, and Whitney Houston for the win. Yes, it is Whitney. The positive and negative.
Angela Davis. I could not see the bottom of it.
The positive and negatives of working in the industry. I think the positives are that I get to be creative every day. Right? That I came into this industry to be creative. I came into the industry to be a writer. I help people write more than I write. But I also really, 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 really like helping other people write. So what I enjoy about this industry is that my job is not the same every day. when I worked in other industries, not musical theater, because it was a little different, but when I worked in other industries, I easily got bored because of the monotony. And the moment I got to the Sci-Fi Channel, every single day was different. Every single day. So that helps me. It's very positive to be creative every day. The negative part is something that Tiffany's been saying this entire time is ego. Tyler Perry is not the only person with ego. I just read a book called Burn It Down. It's about Hollywood. If you feel like being in a negative mind space about Hollywood, read it.
I need to read it right now.
I listened to the audio book, and then I went to a in-person like panel discussion with the author. And it will tell you all of the nastiest things about Hollywood. And those are the things that we deal with on a daily basis, to one extreme or the other. I will say that I haven't had to deal with the extremities that were in this book, but on my very first day at the Sci-Fi Channel, I was told to be seen, not heard.
Ooh.
Very
Lord.
first day. You know what I'm saying? And because I was 25 and very, very new, was I 25, 26, and very, very new to the industry, I didn't know if they were putting me on game or trying to suppress me.
Right.
I didn't know if it was like, no, like, trust me, like, this is what we do here. Or if it was like, no, you don't say anything. Right.
Wow.
And so I didn't buck that because I am a person who believes in systems and protocols.
Yeah.
And I will follow the rules if they make sense to me. The moment they don't make sense to me, I'm knucking and bucking. I'm the rebellious person. I'm the one ready to walk out and petition whatever it is, right? So I say that to say there's a lot of negativity that comes with it on that side, with ego and patriarchy and misogyny and racism and sexism and all these. Oh my God, all these things.
Yeah.
Right? But I choose to do it because I enjoy being creative, and I enjoy the social responsibility of the impact I have on the world as a writer.
I love that. I love that. Put it on a t-shirt. I want to hear about all the things you're doing.
Oh yeah.
Share with us. Yes. Tell us what you're working on and what we can go follow you on.
Yes. So I'm always like, I ain't working on nothing. I'm like, what am I doing? So the Professional Pen, obviously, as we talked about earlier, as a script consultancy, I'm the first Black-owned script consultancy in Hollywood, FYI. And what we do is we develop people from idea to pitch. That literally means you wake up today, you have an idea, or that means you've already finished your screenplay, or you're stuck in the middle of your screenplay. I work with showrunners, right? So no matter where you are in your process, we can help you here, and we help to get you prepared for a professional career. This doesn't mean if you're one of the people who's like, oh, I just have a movie I want to make. Cool. We can work with you too. But our specialty is to get you ready for the studio system. That's what we do. So you can always go to theprofessionalpen.com and check out our services. We offer development notes, mentorship, and membership. So if you're a newbie and you're like, I don't even know enough about this, where do I start? You start with membership, because that's where we're teaching classes three times a month. And they're writing together, and they have a safe community where they can learn and grow. Mentorship is that next level up where it's like, okay, I know what I'm doing and I need some accountability, and I need to learn a process so that I can be able to do this process over and over and over again, so I can write more than one screenplay a year. Then mentorship is for you. And development notes is for anybody with a finished screenplay who is trying to make sure that they are executing the thing they're intending to execute. We give line by line, page by page notes on why things aren't working. The why is what matters. So that's what we focus on. Outside of that, I did a short film a couple of years ago called Truffle Sauce, and it's available to view. So anybody who's interested in seeing a short film that was produced in Houston, written and produced by me, directed by Isaac Yeoman, who is also from Houston and has a production company in Houston. All of our crew was Houston based, all Black and brown people, and all of our actors were from Texas. And this film is about a college student who is trying to reacclimate to life after escaping human trafficking. So if you want to know more about Tweet's story, because her name is Tweet, then you can go over to the website, push watch now, and just for any donation you want to give, any donation whatsoever, you want to give a penny, you want to give $1, you want to give $100, we'll take it. Go ahead and check out Truffle Sauce. Let's see what else is going on. Follow me on Instagram, that's where I do most of my everything, at The Professional Pen. Subscribe on YouTube at Shannon E. Johnson. And my name does have 2 A's, no O's. I think that's it. I don't think I'm missing anything else. Tomorrow's my birthday. Send me money.
Woo! We love a birthday girl. And like she said, please make sure that y'all go and support Shannon, blah, blah, blah. Shannon with 2 A's on YouTube. This has been such a joy for me, Shannon. Thank you for being on here. Normally, guys, we would not do a 2-hour stream, but here we are. Here we are. And we are live and in action. I'm so glad, though. What a wealth of information. I'm going to go back and take notes for myself as I continue to develop as a filmmaker. But Shannon, thank you so much for being here. As you guys know, I am on YouTube at Tiffany Byrd Harrison, of course. Make sure that you follow and subscribe. I do a lot of film analysis and media critiques, and I have some great content coming up, including a video essay about box office flops that we saw this year, The Color Purple, Book of Clarence, and
I need to see Book of Clarence.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. I have a review on that one coming up as well. Where's it showing?
What is it on?
It's on VOD. I mean, it's on the VOD. Where did I watch it? Amazon, I believe. I think I might have paid on Amazon.
I'm surprised that as a Black person, they haven't been putting that in my you should watch.
So it keeps coming up on mine. So I don't know if maybe the content. Maybe they knew you wouldn't like it.
Maybe.
They were like, she ain't about it. But I do have that video coming up breaking down the box office flops. I also have a video coming up on Typecast talking about Carlton, Braxton, Whitley, our faves, Aunt Viv. A video essay piece on that. So make sure you guys stay tuned. And thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me and Shannon. We will see you guys in the next one. If you like this, let us know in the comments of the real video and we will do it again. We'll do it again.
Someone needs some money. I don't know how to get it though.
It's going to come through your YouTube, Shannon. We don't have time for this. Listen, we're Highbrow Negroes. And this has been, we are Highbrow Negroes. This has been Tiffany Byrd Harrison and Shannon E. Johnson. Thank you guys for being here. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for